Hello everyone, welcome to the Gooners Voice. Reese Jacobs here with a brand new video. Just got a couple of things to go over since this weekend's action. Number one, and it's probably the most trending topic for Arsenal over this past weekend, would have to be the red card situation. Yeah? And I'm trying to be unbiased as possible on what transpired, what happened. And first of all, if any other supporter, if you don't support Arsenal, if you support any other club, if your player had received a red card or two yellow cards for what Declan Rice had done, you would understand why every Arsenal fan feels that it was so unjust. Number one, you go back, and I heard one of the older referees, I think it's McDermott, on Sky saying that you shouldn't compare situations and you shouldn't compare what another player has done, and that just totally defeats the purpose of having the letter of the law. Yeah. So everyone's been arguing, a lot of pundits, a lot of ex-referees have been arguing, Declan Rice deserved the red card because the letter of the law. So when we come to the letter of the law, João Pedro kicking the ball away in the first half, the letter of the law states any player who kicks the ball away, who prevents the restart, needs to be carded. He didn't get a yellow card, to the point where the referee even turned his back to insinuate that he was not having any of it. Yet when it happened to Declan Rice, he says he has no choice. But he had a choice against João Pedro, and he didn't give him the yellow card. So yeah, it's just small things like that irritates me as a fan. I am not arguing that Rice shouldn't have been red carded or received a second yellow card. I'm arguing that the consistency of refereeing in the Premier League in particular, it's just not there. Yeah. One match you can win a penalty for handball, and the second match, literally a week later, the same exact scenario can happen, and VAR won't even have a look at it. It's absolutely insane, and I just think that the refereeing standards of the Premier League is a farce. It's a joke. Let's just call it what it is. It is an absolute joke. There was a time when Wenger was our manager, and he said that all the best referees will go to the World Cup and not a single Premier League manager would be included. Obviously, moving forward now, in recent times, we've had two in Martin Oliver and Anthony Taylor. But yeah, it's a farce, and it will always be a laughingstock unless something's changed. I don't know how you change it, but yeah, it's just absolutely terrible. Another one that Arteta points out so brilliantly, he obviously pointed out the João Pedro one, which was my main argument, but he does also point to the Veltman kick. The ball's rolling, so just there in there itself, Declan Rice has not stopped, the quick free kick, because the ball's rolling. He couldn't take the free kick. He had to stop the ball. The ball goes away. He still carries through with his swipe, and he ends up booting Declan Rice, and he just gets a yellow card for that. And yeah, it's just absolutely terrible. And it seems like it's a thing when it comes to Arsenal that we are refereeing guinea pigs, if I can put it that way. For you guys who didn't remember, who can remember, not so long ago when Martinelli got sent off in like the space of 10 seconds for one motion of play. I think it was against Wolves, if I'm not mistaken. Absolutely, like no one's ever seen something like that in their life. First time ever against Arsenal. Yeah. Same thing with Takehiro Tomiyasu. I think it was last season against Crystal Palace. Two yellow cards in the space of like a minute, 2 minutes or something like that. It's just never seen before. Happens against Arsenal. This season, Declan Rice, gets his second yellow card for tipping the ball barely a yard away, and he gets his second yellow card. It's like Arsenal are the refereeing guinea pigs of the Premier League, and I do feel hard done by, and I understand some other supporters, saying, we crybabies and we should move on with it. And I just want to clarify once again that yes, Rice should be getting that second yellow card, but then it needs to be consistent. João Pedro should have got his yellow card in the first half. Veltman should have got his red card for kicking out and swiping at Rice, but none of that. So yeah, I'll leave it there. I'll leave the rant there, and I didn't want to get too angry, but yeah, it spoils the game. And not only that game, it spoils the next game now, because now Declan Rice is not going to be able to be involved for the Spurs game, which is the most massive game for Arsenal. You know, it's a rivalry, and yeah, so that just spoils the whole, you know. Yeah, I just want to leave it there. I don't want to rant too much. Anyway, moving away from that, I love to hear what you guys think. Did you think Rice deserved the second yellow? Did you think Chris Kavanagh was a bit biased? Because I felt, you know, if you look at the statistics, Arsenal had less fouls but more yellow cards than Brighton. Brighton had something like 20, 25 or 27 fouls throughout the game and only got 2 or 3 yellow cards, which is insane. But yeah, anyway, moving on to some transfer news, which is quite strange. You know, a lot of us think that the transfer window is over and done and Arsenal have made their signings and that's it. But it's not that. And we've just seen recently a £35 million bid, or €35 million bid for Leandro Trossard, which is about £29.7 million. And it was really interesting. I woke up to the news this morning from Fabrizio Romano, and I think the Times has also posted an article about it. And I didn't want to make the video without, you know, making sure everything was certain, you know, and Arsenal have swiftly rejected that deal. So I don't think there's anything to really look into there. I don't think Arsenal would have attained or entertained any offers unless it was really stupid money for Leandro Trossard, who's nearly 30 now. I think Trossard's about 29. So it would have taken really silly money from Saudi for Arsenal to sell. And yeah, I just, you know, the way Arsenal, even right now with the signing of Raheem Sterling, they are a little bit short. So losing your best left winger, and I say that based on form because I do think Martinelli's got a higher potential, a higher ceiling than Trossard, but he's obviously struggling for form at the moment. So it was just a no-brainer from Arsenal to decline, and I think every Arsenal supporter, every Arsenal fan will be happy with that because I think Trossard's been such an important player for Arsenal since he's arrived, and definitely last season there were games where Trossard was really invaluable, and just the game against Aston Villa 2 weekends ago, where he came off the bench to score the winner, or one of the goals, in my opinion, was the winner because it was a sucker punch to Villa. You don't want to be losing players like that, you know, and I think that Trossard is a very different type of winger to what we have in modern day wingers. He doesn't have electric pace, and he's almost similar to a Spanish winger. Yeah? You look at Spanish wingers back in the day, you look at someone like Santi Cazorla, who obviously moved into midfield for Arsenal, but he started off as a winger. He started off as a left winger at Villarreal. The same with David Silva over at Valencia. He started as a right winger. And Trossard's in that same mold. Yeah, very technically gifted, doesn't have the blistering pace that Martinelli or Saka has, but very, very good technically. And, you know, he's probably the best finisher at Arsenal now that Eddie's left, Nketiah. So yeah, I think losing Trossard would have been a world ender for Arsenal. They couldn't afford to lose Trossard, and Trossard's not the type of player to look for a big payday. I think Trossard wants to play football, and I think he's still at that age where he can offer a lot in terms of football ability. So I think this move would have been a little bit too early for him. So I'm really stoked and excited that he'll stay. Because, yeah, like I said, he's one of our best players. And then just to wrap things up, I wanted to look at Arsenal's transfer window. And I wanted to ask this question, to pose this question to our supporters, to the Arsenal supporters, Arsenal fans around the world. Are Arsenal the winners of the transfer window? So I'm not sure what constitutes a winner. And it might be too early to say someone has won a window. You know, just based off signing a player, not seeing how the player has been integrated into the team, their output, things like that. Because a few years ago, when we signed Nicolas Pepe for £72 million, I thought Arsenal had won the window. And that obviously backfired. Not that Pepe was half as bad as what the media made him out to be. He was just not a £72 million player. But looking at what Arsenal have done in this window, and looking at last season, you know, once the season ended, I looked at Arsenal's squad, and me as a fan who watches every Arsenal game, to be fair, sometimes 2 or 3 times, because I'm just a lover of football, and not just Arsenal in general. I watch all football, yeah? And I know there are some of you who are like that. And I looked at at the end of the season, I looked at Arsenal's squad and I thought, what really needs strengthening? And I looked at it realistically, yeah, to the point where could you strengthen the starting 11? Yeah, not just the numbers, not just the squad depth. Could you strengthen the starting 11? I thought at the beginning of the window, I wasn't sure about David Raya, but at the end of the season, and even now, David Raya is a really good goalkeeper. Yeah? He is better than Ramsdale, and that's one decision that I didn't understand at the time, but obviously Arteta got it right, as well as Edu, so kudos to them. I looked at the team and I thought left back would have been a very sticky situation for me because Zinchenko really struggled last year. And then Kivio came into the team around the New Year sometime after I think it was the West Ham last year. West Ham, I think we lost to West Ham just after the 10th of December or something like that. Or it was Fulham, one of the two. And I just thought that that left back situation just didn't sit right with me. And then Kivio came into the team in the new year and he had a good spell at left back. And then he didn't, Then Zinchenko came back into the team and then that didn't work. And then Tommy came back from injury and that really stuck and that worked. And, we got the defensive stability that helped us finish the end of the season so strongly. And the thing with Tommy is that you can't depend on him. And ultimately, he's injured now again. So I looked at that and I thought that I did think, because a lot of fans were talking about, Arsenal need a number 9, Arsenal need a wide player. And I thought that Arsenal do need a number 9. But the way Havertz finished the season, I did think that Arteta and Edu would have been like, we saved ourselves some time and some money here. We don't have to go and get a world-class number 9 that's going to cost 100 plus million pounds. And I think that's why they looked at Sesko at the beginning of the window, because it's someone they could have integrated into the team, who didn't need to have that much pressure on his shoulders because of how well Havertz had played the number 9 role. So, I think that saved them. And in terms of wide player, I think wide player would have just been the same like the number 9 situation. You would sign an additional body to be backup to Bukayo Saka, because obviously you've got Trossard and Martinelli on the left-hand side. So the right-hand side is where the weakness was in terms of Reece Nelson coming on from Bukayo Saka. Was just, he's just not good enough for Arsenal. He's a good player, Reece Nelson, and I really hope he does really well at Fulham. I think that's a good move for him, but he wasn't good enough for Arsenal, and it's just the reality of where Arsenal has pushed onto in recent years. So I looked at that and I thought, in terms of starting 11, it would be the left-hand side in terms of midfield, left number 8, and left back. And Arsenal immediately were on that. I know it took a bit of time. There was a bit of sagas on both transfers for those positions in Calafiori and Mikel Merino. And, it goes a bit against it now with Merino being injured, albeit that he got that injury in training and not before the transfer. So that just, it's a bit of silver lining there. But and I thought that's amazing, and anything bonus would have been that backup winger. And when deadline then came, and then the talk was of Ramsdale leaving and, us getting a different goalkeeper. At the time it was, I think, Joan Garcia, and we ultimately ended up getting Neto from Bournemouth. I thought that right there, that was okay. We still had Reece Nelson, and it was a bit of a problem because Nelson wasn't good enough to start over Saka. Maybe a league game, but not in any other game. Not a league game, sorry, League Cup game or FA Cup game, but not in Premier League games and definitely not in Champions League games, unless you had won the group stage. And we all know that's not the same anymore, so that format has changed. So when we did get Raheem Sterling, and now that we've got Raheem Sterling, I do think that this window was top class from Arsenal. I think Arteta and Edu looked at what I felt as someone who doesn't have the tactical prowess that these guys have and the knowledge of football that these guys have. But I looked at the team, and for me it was left back and left number 8. And they replaced they got signings for those positions that can help starting 11 at a relatively good price as well, considering how good Arsenal are. Picking up Calafiori for under 50 million, as well as Mikel Merino for under 40 million to improve the starting 11. I thought that was really good business. And then just the addition of Raheem Sterling. I know a lot of fans have been against the signing of Raheem Sterling, and I'm not really against it, because I look at what Raheem Sterling has done, the age of Sterling as well. He's got good experience, but he's not 30 yet. People think that Raheem might be, past his prime or past his best, and I don't think that. And I don't think he'll start for Arsenal. But what I do think is that they've elevated even the depth now. Before Reece Nelson would come on. If Saka cannot change a game, I don't think bringing Saka off and bringing Reece Nelson on is going to do much of a difference, in my opinion. Yeah, in my opinion. But I do feel that Sterling has got the pace that a Saka would have. He's got one of the best box knowledge and box awareness, just to find space in the box. I mean, if you think of all Raheem Sterling's goals, as a fan, as an Arsenal fan, even as anyone watching this, they're all tap-ins. And we come to a place in time now where we say, tap-in merchant or things like that. But it's so hard to be a tap-in merchant, because you have to anticipate where the space is. You have to anticipate where the ball's going to drop, where the ball's going to bounce up, and you just have to be there. And Sterling's got that. And the one thing that Sterling thrives on is playing against really solid low blocks, because he's played most of his career at Manchester City under Pep Guardiola. And every team that's played against Man City or plays against Man City, just sits behind the ball. They park the bus. And people forget that not too long ago, a couple of years ago, 1920 season, Sterling, for goal contributions, goals and assists, was something like 51, 52. Only Lionel Messi had more than Sterling in that season. So yeah, I'm not saying Sterling can go back to those numbers, but you never know. But yeah, I think that Arsenal have definitely done a really classy transfer window. I'm absolutely happy with the signings they've made, and I think they've not only really assisted the starting 11, but they've added particularly good depth for people coming off the bench. So yeah, I think that's it for today. I'd love to hear your guys' opinions on the red card situation and also the Raheem Sterling one. And do you think Arsenal had a good transfer window? Honestly. So yeah, that's all for today. We'll see. It's a bit of a slow week, no football this week, and I think that's what makes the red card even worse. I hate going into an international break with this negative